The planet Elkara was quiet. Dust blew across broken buildings and old mining machines. The war had ended months ago, but the damage was still fresh. Rusted metal lay in piles, and silence ruled the land. Leora sat alone in the ruins. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and silver. She wore torn clothes and had no shoes. Her hands were rough from digging for food and parts. She had not eaten a full meal in days. She had once lived in a great city. Her people, the Ilari, had homes that floated in the sky. But when the Civil War broke out, everything changed. Her leaders fled and left the weak behind. Leora was one of them. They said she was too soft, too kind, so they left her. Every day she searched the ruins. Sometimes she found dry roots to eat. Sometimes nothing. She drank from a cracked water tank and slept inside a broken vehicle. She did not cry anymore. She was past tears. One morning, she heard a noise. Not wind, not falling metal. It was a ship. A small human salvage ship landed nearby. Leora froze. She had not seen a living person in weeks. Daniel stepped out of the ship. He wore a dusty jacket, a cap, and carried a small scanner. He had short brown hair and a tired face. He walked slowly, scanning the ground. Leora hid behind a wall. She watched him. Was he dangerous? Humans had fought in the war too. Some had helped her people. Some had not. Daniel moved toward an old power station. He looked inside, then turned around. His eyes met Leora's. She stepped back, scared. He raised his hands. "Wait," he said. "I won't hurt you." Leora didn't answer. She stayed behind the wall. Daniel sat on a stone and put his scanner down. "You live here?" he asked. "This place is dead." She looked at him, then slowly came forward. Her voice was soft. "I was left." Daniel looked at her, surprised. "Left? By who?" "My people," she said. "They ran. I was not strong." Daniel nodded. He reached into his bag and pulled out a protein bar. He tossed it toward her. Leora caught it. She stared at it, then opened the wrapper with shaking hands. She ate slowly. Her eyes never left him. "My name is Daniel," he said. "I came for old tech. Didn't expect anyone here." "Leora," she said, "I don't want to be alone." Daniel sighed. He looked around the broken land. No one should be alone here. He stood up. "Come with me. I have a tent, some food, clean water, just for a few days." Leora looked down. She wanted to say yes, but fear still sat in her heart. She had been used before, lied to, hurt, only for a little while, she whispered. They walked to a small camp. It was set up behind an old wall, hidden from the sky. He gave her a blanket and a place to sit. She watched him cook a hot meal. The smell made her mouth water. He handed her a bowl. She held it like treasure. "Thank you," she said. "You're welcome," Daniel replied. He sat across from her. "How long were you out there?" "Since the war ended," she said. "Almost 3 months." Daniel shook his head. "No one came back? No rescue?" She shook her head. "They forgot me. Or maybe they chose to." Silence filled the space between them. Only the sound of the small stove burning could be heard. That night, Leora curled up in the corner of the tent. She did not sleep much. She watched Daniel, making sure he was real. He snored a little, turned in his sleep, but never moved toward her. When the sun rose, he gave her tea. They sat in silence, sipping slowly. Leora felt something strange. Not fear, not hope, something between. She looked at Daniel. "Why did you help me?" He thought for a moment. "Because you needed help. That's all." She nodded. It was a simple answer, but it meant more to her than any words before. And so, the girl who had been left behind and the man who came for scrap sat together in a quiet world, both wondering what would come next. Leora stayed in the camp for a few days. Each morning, she helped Daniel clean the area and fix small tools. She did not speak much at first, but her eyes watched everything. She learned fast. Daniel noticed how careful she was. She touched wires and panels like they were alive. She had a soft way of moving, never wasting effort. He gave her broken drones to look at. To his surprise, she repaired one in 2 hours. "Where did you learn that?" he asked. "I worked in energy systems," she said. "Before the war, before they left me." Daniel nodded. "You're good. Better than me." She gave a small smile, the first he had seen. "Thank you." They shared meals and small stories. Leora told him about her people, the Ilari. She said they valued beauty, skill, and loyalty, but only from those they chose. If someone failed or showed weakness, they were cast out. Daniel found it cruel. "So they just left you because you weren't like them?" Leora looked away. "I was kind. I helped prisoners. They call me soft." Daniel shook his head. "That's not weakness. That's strength." She stared at him, unsure if he was telling the truth, but something in his voice felt real. One evening, they sat by a small fire. The stars were bright. Leora leaned back and looked up. "I used to dream of flying," she said. "Now I dream of food and shelter." Daniel chuckled. "I used to dream of racing ships. Now I dream of finding good batteries." She laughed a little. The sound was soft, unsure, but real. Daniel smiled. The next day, trouble came. A loud engine woke them. A different ship landed nearby. Daniel stood up fast, grabbing his scanner. Leora froze. "Stay hidden," he said. A tall man stepped out of the new ship. He wore a heavy coat and had a long scar on his cheek. He was another salvager, Greg. Someone Daniel had met before. Greg wasn't friendly. "Daniel," Greg called. "Didn't expect you here." Daniel walked toward him, just picking through the old plant. Greg looked around. "You alone?" "Yeah," Daniel lied. But Greg was smart. He saw footprints near the camp. He walked closer and spotted Leora. Well, what do we have here?" Greg said, smiling. "You keeping a pet?" Leora stepped back, fear in her eyes. "She's with me." Daniel said quickly, "Leave her alone." Greg laughed. "With you? Come on, man. That's a rare Ilari. Worth a lot in the right markets." "She's not for sale." Greg's smile faded. "You gonna stop me?" Daniel stood tall. "Yes." Greg stared at him, then looked at Leora. "She's lucky. Most of her kind aren't." Then he turned and walked away. But his eyes were cold. "Careful, Daniel. People talk." When he was gone, Leora sat down and covered her face. Her hands shook. "I'm sorry," Daniel said. "He's a bad man, but he won't touch you. I promise." "I hate being seen like that," she whispered. "Like a thing, not a person." Daniel sat beside her. "You're not a thing. Not to me." She looked at him, eyes shining. "Why are you kind to me? You don't gain anything." "Maybe not, but it's the right thing." For a long time, they sat in silence. Leora looked at the fire. Daniel watched the stars. That night, she did not sleep in the corner. She moved her blanket closer to his, just enough to feel safe. Not touching, but close. Days passed. They worked together. Daniel taught her to use a scanner. Leora showed him how to fix energy cores. They made a good team. Daniel began to laugh more. Leora began to speak more. The camp didn't feel cold anymore. But deep in Leora's heart, fear still lived. Not of Daniel, but of losing this piece. She knew the galaxy was not kind. She had one thought that would not leave her. She needed to belong, to be more than just a guest, to be safe, not just a day, but always. And one day, she would ask a question that changed both their lives. One morning, the sun rose red behind the broken hills. Leora stood near the edge of the camp, watching it. Her mind was full. The camp was safe, and Daniel was kind, but her fear had not fully gone. The visit from Greg still lived in her thoughts. She turned when Daniel came out of the tent, yawning. He rubbed his eyes and smiled at her. "You're up early," he said. "I could not sleep," she said. He nodded. "I understand." They sat together near the stove while the water heated. Leora looked down at her hands. "Daniel," she said, "do you think I will ever be safe? Truly safe?" He looked at her for a long time. "I want you to be, but this galaxy is full of bad people." Like Greg, she whispered. Yes, and worse. She looked into the fire. I have been thinking. There is one way, but it is hard to ask. Daniel watched her closely. What way? She turned her eyes to him. If I were joined to you as your wife, they could not take me. Not by law. Daniel sat very still. Her words were calm, but her hands were shaking. Leora, he said slowly, are you asking me to marry you? She nodded once. Not for love, not for now, but to live, to belong, to be safe. Daniel looked at the ground. It was quiet for a while. Then he said, I need time, not because I don't care, but because this matters. I understand, she said. They ate in silence. The air between them felt heavy. That day, Daniel worked on fixing a power cell, but his hands moved slowly. His mind was far away. He thought of Earth, of his past. He had never stayed in one place this long, never shared space with someone every day. Leora helped him as usual, but she didn't smile much. She stayed quiet, letting him think. That night, as they sat beside the fire, Daniel spoke again. I left Earth because I didn't want rules, didn't want ties. She nodded. I know, you told me, but I also didn't have anyone. No one to miss me, no one to wait for me. She looked at him. Now you're here, he said, and I feel something new. I don't want you to be taken. I don't want to see you hurt. Leora listened, heart beating fast. If marriage means you can stay safe, then yes, Daniel said. I'll do it. Tears welled in her eyes. She tried to hold them back. Thank you, she whispered. But I don't want this to feel like a prison to you, he said. It has to be your choice always. It is, she said. For the first time, it truly is. The next day, they worked together to set up a small signal post. Daniel used it to reach a trade satellite in orbit. He filed a union request under human law, listing Leora as his partner. It would take 2 days to confirm. During that time, they stayed close. They didn't speak much of the future. They just kept working. One night, while sitting in silence, Leora said, I never thought I would ask someone to marry me. Not like this. Daniel smiled. I never thought I would say yes. But here we are. She looked at him with soft eyes. Thank you for seeing me. Not as a tool, not as a thing. You're a person, Leora, a strong one, and I'm lucky to know you. The words made her heart warm. She had been alone, forgotten, broken. Now she felt seen, not just as someone to protect, but someone who mattered. When the confirmation came 2 days later, the message blinked green. It was official. They were married, not with music, not with guests, no flowers or rings, just 2 people, sitting under broken stars, holding mugs of hot tea. Leora looked at the message and then at Daniel. Does this make me human now? She asked, half joking. He chuckled. No, but it makes you mine, and that means no one touches you. She smiled, not with fear, but with peace. And somewhere deep inside, a small hope began to grow. Leora woke early, before the sun. She stepped outside the tent and looked at the sky. The stars were fading as morning came. She wrapped the blanket around her and breathed the cold air. Today, everything was different. She was not just a guest. She was part of something now. Daniel joined her a few minutes later. He carried 2 cups of tea and handed her one. You didn't sleep? He asked. She shook her head. I was thinking. I never thought I would be someone's wife. Daniel smiled. I never thought I would be someone's husband. But here we are. They sat on a flat stone and watched the sunrise. The light touched the ruins and made them look soft, almost peaceful. For the next few days, Leora and Daniel worked like usual. But something between them had changed. They moved like a team. They laughed more. They shared more stories. Daniel told her about his younger days, working in deep space, fixing old satellites. Leora told him about her time before the war, when she sang in the temples of her people. You sang? Daniel asked, surprised. Yes, she said, blushing. Only in the mornings. It was a quiet song. You still remember it? She nodded. You'll have to sing it for me one day, he said. She smiled but didn't answer. That afternoon, they went to an old fuel station to search for parts. Leora climbed to a small hole in the wall and found a power cell still holding charge. She called out to Daniel. "You found something?" he asked, walking over. "Yes, this one still works." He smiled. "You're getting good at this." Leora looked down. "You taught me." On their way back to camp, they saw smoke in the distance. Daniel stopped. "That's not good. Could it be Greg?" Leora asked. "Maybe, or others." They reached the camp and quickly packed their tools. Daniel checked the scanner. A ship had landed 2 hills away. "We need to stay quiet," he said. "No lights tonight." That night, they ate in the dark. The fire was low. Leora sat close to Daniel, her body tense. "If someone comes," she said, "we run?" Daniel shook his head. "We stand. Together." The next morning, a small group of strangers came into view. 3 humans and 1 alien with a long neck and glowing eyes. They walked with care, but they were armed. Daniel stood at the edge of the camp. Leora stayed behind, watching. "Can I help you?" Daniel asked. 1 man stepped forward, looking for salvage. "Heard someone found working tech." "This is my claim," Daniel said. "It's registered." The man looked past him and saw Leora. He smiled. "Didn't know you had company." "She's my wife," Daniel said, voice firm. "You have no business here." The man raised his hands. "Easy. We don't want trouble." "Then move along." They left, but not without a final look at Leora. That night, Daniel sat cleaning his tools. Leora sat beside him, quiet. "I hate how they look at me," she said. "I know," Daniel said, "but they won't touch you. I won't let them." She touched his hand gently. "I feel safe when you say that." He looked at her. "I mean it." Later, as they lay in their tent, Leora whispered, "I think I'm starting to feel like I belong." Daniel smiled in the dark. "You do." Days passed. The sky changed. The wind grew colder. Daniel and Leora built stronger walls around the camp. They found new fuel cells and repaired an old defense beacon. It was slow work, but they were proud. One morning, Daniel caught Leora singing as she cleaned the camp. Her voice was light, soft, and full of peace. He listened from the tent, not wanting to interrupt. When she finished, he stepped out. "That was beautiful," he said. She blushed. "It was a morning song. From my temple." "Sing again someday," he said. "Please." She nodded. Their days became routine. Work, eat, rest, laugh. And something else began to grow, something slow and quiet. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was something like happiness. Leora looked at Daniel differently now, not just as her protector, not just as her husband by law, but as someone she cared for deeply. And Daniel began to see Leora not as someone he rescued, but as someone strong and special. Neither of them said the word love, but it was there, waiting. It was only a matter of time before they would speak it aloud. The next few weeks passed slowly. Leora and Daniel worked side by side every day. They collected power cells, repaired machines, and built a small greenhouse using old parts. The plants grew fast with Leora's help. She said her people used to grow food and water and light, and she remembered the old ways. Daniel watched her with quiet pride. She moved with calm and care, her hands always gentle. She had changed since he first found her. Her eyes were brighter now. She laughed more. Her voice no longer shook when she spoke. One night, after dinner, they sat by the fire. Leora leaned back against a pile of blankets. Daniel sat beside her, sharpening a tool. The stars above were clear. "I feel strong again," Leora said. "Not just my body, but my heart." Daniel looked at her. "You are strong. You always were." She smiled. "Only now I believe it." He nodded. "You've been through a lot, but you never gave up. That's real strength." Leora looked at him, her silver eyes shining in the firelight. "You helped me find it." Daniel said nothing, but his hand reached out and rested gently on hers. A quiet moment passed between them. No words, Just the warmth of two people who had faced the dark and found light. The next day, Daniel went out to search the far hills for metal. Leora stayed behind to tend the plants. When he returned, he found her with her hair tied back, covered in dust, smiling. "How was it?" she asked. "Long walk," he said. "Found some wire, not much else." He looked at the greenhouse. "You've done good work." She shrugged. "It feels good to grow something." That night, as they cleaned up, Daniel paused. He turned to her. "Leora," he said, "do you ever think about what comes next? After this?" She looked at him. "You mean leaving the planet?" He nodded. "Yeah, maybe find a place that isn't falling apart." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I used to be afraid to leave. Now I think, if you go, I want to go too." Daniel smiled. "Then we'll find somewhere. Together." The next morning, something was wrong. A signal came through the old beacon. A warning. Ships nearby. Unknown ID. Daniel's face turned serious. "We might have company again." Leora looked at the screen. "Do you think it's Greg?" "Maybe. Or others like him." They spent the day setting up defenses. Daniel placed sensor spikes around the area. Leora checked the power to the old turret on the roof. It worked, but just barely. That night, they slept lightly. Every sound woke them. In the early morning, a small ship appeared in the sky. It landed far off, but within sight. Two figures came out. One had a scanner. Daniel watched through a scope. "They're not Greg. I don't know them." "Should we hide?" Leora asked. "No. We stand ready." The strangers reached the camp in an hour. One was a woman in a dark coat. The other, a man with short hair and a long rifle. "Hello there," the woman called. "We saw your signal." "You're not pirates, are you?" "No," Daniel said. "Just living." "Same here," the man said. "We're looking for trade. Got parts, food, medicine." Daniel looked at Leora. She nodded. "All right," Daniel said. "We can talk." They sat around the fire. The woman's name was Nora. The man was Pete. They were salvagers too, but kinder than Greg. "You two alone here?" Nora asked. "Yes," Daniel said. "But we manage." Pete looked at Leora. "You Ilari?" "I am," she said. "Didn't expect to see one here." Leora didn't reply. Daniel spoke instead. "She's my wife." Nora raised her eyebrows, but said nothing rude. "All right." They shared stories, traded a few small items. Nora gave him a working power cell in exchange for a rare circuit. Pete gave Leora a bag of seeds. "You'll grow more than roots with these," he said. When they left the next morning, Nora looked at Daniel. "You built something good here," she said. "Hold on to it." Daniel nodded. "We will." Leora stood beside him as the ship lifted off. "They were kind," she said. "Yeah," Daniel said. "There are still good people out there." She took his hand. "I'm glad I found one right here." Daniel smiled. "Me too." And as the sky cleared again, they knew the world was still dangerous, but it wasn't empty. And together, they could face whatever came next. Days turned into weeks, and the small camp felt more like a home. The plants in the greenhouse grew taller. The machines hummed without problems. Daniel and Leora worked in harmony. There was peace, even if the world around them was still broken. Leora now walked with confidence. She laughed often and sang in the mornings. Daniel listened to her voice while he fixed tools. It reminded him of life before all the war and noise. One day, Daniel came back from a short trip to the northern ridge. He looked serious. Leora met him at the edge of the camp. "What is it?" she asked. "Footprints," he said. "Fresh ones." "Not mine." Leora's face tightened. "How many?" "At least 3. They're watching. Maybe waiting." They knew this peace might not last forever, so they prepared. They moved their supplies into safer spots and charged the turret. Daniel fixed the sensor spikes and added more around the greenhouse. That night, Daniel stayed up. He sat with his rifle and watched the dark. Leora sat beside him. "You should sleep." "I'll sleep later," he said. "You go." She didn't move. "We stay awake together." It was a long night. Nothing happened, but the silence was heavy. When morning came, they were still watching. 2 days later, the danger came. A small group of armed raiders came walking down the hill. Dirty clothes. Hard eyes. One of them was Greg. Daniel stood at the edge of the camp, rifle ready. "Well, look who made a home," Greg said, smiling. "Thought I'd come take a closer look." "Keep walking," Daniel said. Greg laughed. "Or what? There's 3 of us. You've got 1 gun." Leora stepped up beside Daniel. She held a small shock device. 2 of us." Greg looked at her. "Ah, the bride. Still hiding behind your human." Daniel's voice turned sharp. "She's not hiding. She's standing right here." Greg moved forward. "We just want a few things. Food, tools, maybe the alien girl." Daniel didn't blink. "Then you'll get nothing." Greg raised his gun. Before he could shoot, the old turret on the roof came alive. Leora had set the trigger. A loud warning sounded, and the turret turned toward the raiders. "Back off," she said. "Now." Greg paused. He looked at the turret, then at Daniel. "This isn't over," he growled. He turned and walked away, the others following. The turret followed them until they were gone. When it was safe, Daniel lowered his gun and turned to Leora. "You did that." She nodded. "I wasn't going to let him take our home." He smiled. "You were amazing." She looked at him. "I was scared, but not like before. Now I know I can fight." That night, they sat close by the fire. "We need to leave," Daniel said. "They'll be back, maybe with more." "Where will we go?" Leora asked. "I know a place," he said. "Old colony on Mursa. It's small but peaceful. Good people." She nodded. "Then we go. Together." Over the next few days, they packed everything. They took tools, seeds, power cells, and anything they could carry. Daniel repaired his ship. Leora prepared maps and food. On the last night, they stood on the hill and looked at their camp. "We built something here," Leora said. "Yes," Daniel replied, "and we'll build again." They took off early in the morning. The ship rose through the clouds, leaving the dusty planet behind. Leora looked out the window. Her eyes were full, but not with fear. She had lived through the worst. She had found hope, strength, and love. And now, with Daniel by her side, she was flying toward a new life. Together, they would start again. And this time, no one would leave her behind. The ship flew through space, quiet and steady. Leora sat near the window, watching the stars pass by. Daniel sat beside her, checking the ship's controls. They had left the old world behind. Now, they were heading to a new one. Mercer was still a few days away. The trip gave them time to rest, to talk, and to dream. Leora looked at Daniel. "Do you think he'll accept me there?" Daniel nodded. "They don't care about race or planet. They care about heart. You have a good one." She smiled softly. "I want to build something there. A garden, a home, maybe even a school." Daniel grinned. "A school?" "Yes," she said. "To teach what I know. Maybe some Ilari stories, maybe energy work. Something small." "I think they'll love that," he said. They spent the next few days planning. Daniel told her about the colony. Mursa had green fields, clean water, and no wars. People worked together. Everyone helped everyone. Leora listened with wonder. It sounded like a dream. "It's not perfect," he said, "but it's better than most places." Finally, they reached orbit. The planet below was blue and green, full of life. Daniel guided the ship down. They landed near a small town with white roofs and solar towers. As they stepped out, people gathered. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes approached. "You must be Daniel," she said. "I'm Nora. I run the welcome station." Daniel shook her hand. "Nice to meet you. This is Leora." Nora looked at Leora, and her smile grew. "Welcome, both of you." Leora bowed slightly. "Thank you." They were given a small house near the fields. It had 2 rooms, a working kitchen, and a garden patch. Leora walked through it with wide eyes. "It's beautiful," she said. Daniel nodded. "It's ours." They unpacked slowly. Leora placed her tools in one room, and started clearing the garden. Daniel fixed the roof and connected the power. By the end of the week, the place looked like home. Leora started planting the seeds Pete had given her. Flowers, vegetables, even a fruit vine. She worked every morning with joy. Children from the colony came to watch. "What are those?" one boy asked. "Food," she said, "and stories." Each plant has a story. They listened as she told tales of the Ilari sun gardens, of music that made trees grow faster. Word spread. More people came. They asked her to teach the children. Leora agreed. Daniel watched from the porch as Leora spoke to the kids. Her voice was soft but clear. Her hands moved with care. She was no longer the quiet girl in the ruins. She was a teacher now, a guide. One evening, Daniel cooked dinner while Leora rested. The smell of soup filled the house. She walked in, smiling. "You're getting better at cooking," she said. "I had a good teacher," he replied. They sat and ate together. After dinner, they stepped outside. The sky was full of stars. Leora looked up. "I used to fear the stars. Now I see them as roads. Roads to better places." Daniel took her hand. "This is a better place. Because you're here." She looked at him with gentle eyes. "You saved me." He shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just gave you a hand." She stepped closer. "Maybe, but I love you, Daniel. Truly." He smiled. "I love you too, Leora." The words were simple, but they were real. Spoken under the stars, they meant everything. From that day on, they lived with peace. Leora taught at the small school she helped build. Daniel fixed machines and helped the colony grow. They laughed, worked, and dreamed together. The past did not vanish, but it no longer hurt. It was just a part of the path that led them to each other. People in the colony often spoke of them, the quiet human and the strong Ilari woman who came from a broken world and made something beautiful. And when children asked how they met, Leora would smile and say, "He gave me food when I was hungry. Then he gave me his name so I could be free. But more than that, he gave me a future." And Daniel would add, "She gave me more than that. She gave me a reason to stay." Together, they built a life that was simple, strong, and full of hope. A life that began when a forsaken girl found a kind man and asked to be his wife.